Hey everybody, this podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. You can go to www.audibletrial.com/TNRL and sign up for a free 30-day trial. What that gets you is a free audio download. I know we talk about this every time, we say it every week. Go to www.audibletrial.com/TNRL. But really, this is our only advertisement, and it works out for you. You can sign up for the membership. It's free. You get a free audio download with that. We get something out of it too. And what we hope to do with that something is to make the show bigger and better and to do more things. If you're just thinking about it, if you're just on the fence, just go. Try it out. It's free. If you like it, then the next month you'll pay a little money for it. But you won't mind it so much because you tried it and you liked it. And you're going to get something out of it. And we recommend a lot of books. You don't even have to take our recommendations. You can download any book you want. There's a lot to choose from. So please, www.audibletrial.com/TNRL, free 30-day trial, free audio download.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read that this Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and
Hey everybody, it is Monday, June 25th, 2012. I'm your host, Ken. With me all the way across the country, we have Bob, once
How's it
again.
going?
And Jason.
Hello, how you do?
And Bob actually lined up a really good series of things to talk about this week. However, I did not get through that gigantic journal article he sent me
That's okay.
last
That's all right.
night.
We'll get to it.
So, Bob, why don't you introduce the subject and then we can sort of talk about it.
Well, I had read a, and we had mentioned this a little bit before, but I had read this blog post by Dan Barker, and Dan Barker is he's the co-chair of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and he wrote this article about religious experience, how it's not evidence of God, and he was talking about his religious experiences. He was talking about being in church and singing the hymns and getting the goosebumps. And I guess, and in the back of my head, I keep hearing Dr. Price talk about being in the Spirit of God. And Dan Barker, he was talking about it. And his blog post was really good because he was saying that even now that he, is an avowed atheist, that he can still turn those religious feelings on. He can still be in that spiritual mode, even though he does, even though he knows that there is no agency behind it, and then he talked about how that experience, that response, is sort of a spectrum disorder, and he was talking about like some people have the religious experience more powerfully than others. And as I was reading the blog post, I was thinking about, we had talked before how there, we sort of touched on the idea of religious experience as a biologic phenomena, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about today. But it occurred to me that I have never, ever had that religious experience. Never, not once. In fact, I remember being in church and just being bored out of my skull and just thinking about other things. And I've never, ever felt that feeling, the feeling of being in the presence of God.
But how many people do you know who've claimed personally, not just read about, but personally know who've claimed to have that experience?
I've met a lot.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people, and I think that Barker is right when he sort of assesses it as a spectrum disorder, and I'm on the end of the spectrum that does not have that religious experience. I've never had it. In the closest thing I could ever say that I have ever had to a religious experience, because I know it's not, was the first time I went to First Flight at Kitty Hawk. That is amazing. If you've never been, that is an amazing, amazing place to go. Because those two guys in 1903 achieved powered flight. And then 66 years later, in one person's lifetime, somebody was on the moon. Right? So I mean, you think about like that small beginning and how we were able to move from that, and just how monumental that was. And what's cool about it there too is like you can read a lot of their diaries, and you can read a lot of their methods and their thought processes, and they were an interesting. And I really like looking in at their equipment and looking at their notes and their diaries. I felt that was a little awe-inspiring, but not a religious experience. So, I don't know. How about you, Ken? Have you ever had that religious experience? Have you felt the power of the Holy Ghost?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, I was raised, in a religious family. I mean, nominally religious, but still, I think a lot of it has to do with, like, what denomination church were you going to when you were growing up?
Methodist and Baptist, depending on who was taking me.
Yeah. See, that's I feel like that's part of it too. The Protestant circles don't really have a lot of the grandeur and spectacle and awe that more traditional sort of like Catholic or Anglo-Catholic churches have, where it's like there's incense and there's
we sang all the songs, man. I mean,
and that can do it too. It's the group behavior. We're social animals, so. As some of us start to do things and others sort of come into a group activity, it can create sort of a melded, like, emotional response. You see it in Pentecostal churches. I don't understand how, and this is just my background, people coming from, a Baptist denomination get that same feel that I received in Anglo-Catholic church, where it's big, rough stone walls and hand-carved wooden pews and, incense and a giant pipe organ. But it's an emotional response created by, group activity.
I want to know what it was like for you, because I never had that feeling. I mean, what happened to you?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if I could explain it. I mean, we're talking more than 20 years ago. Was probably the last time I felt it, at least from church. But you had sent me some interesting stuff in the email last night, and I was reading through it, and I think something that I find plausible is the idea that it's just sort of a feedback loop in the brain, where one hemisphere is trying to talk to the other, and then perceives, that sensory as an outside presence. And sometimes, like, something like, if you're already engaged in an activity that's focusing on an outside presence, you begin to perceive that presence, when really it's just one side of your brain trying to contact the other one.
Yeah, but I guess what I want to know is, in this, I always say that I'm trying to understand the other side of the fence. I don't know what those feelings are like. They talk about, like, that feeling of being in the presence of something or a oneness. Never felt it. Never. I don't know what that's like. I mean, all I can do is verbalize it and imagine. I've never ever felt what it's like.
So you never, like, been in a movie and something's touched you, and you're like, if you get the chill bumps and your hair stands on end, and you get that emotional overwhelming of an experience.
I mean,
have you
I
had
get
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had movies where they're like, there's the big reveal, and you're like, ooh, it's like that goosebumpy feeling there. But that's
like
not
a sunset, or just something where you've seen, and you just like your whole body it just feels like it's warm and whatever.
No, I mean, yeah, I've had the goosebump sensation, but I think that's more of a I mean, that's definitely a physiological response, but not that sense of oneness or the sense of being in the presence of something greater. Yeah. I did have that sense at Kitty Hawk of being in the presence of something profound. I had that sense that this is where it happened, and this is where they did it, and this is how they did it, but not something. There wasn't a presence.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the reason I was asking you that question is like if you've ever had that kind of odd, physical feeling of where you're just like you're almost brought to tears because of the beauty or the essence or whatever you're experiencing is just beyond, like kind of like what you're talking about. And I'm not saying that you cried or was brought to tears because you're in the presence of great works and greatness like that, but I wonder if that is the feeling that you get, and then tacked onto that is like, wow, why did I get overwhelmed with these emotions? Tack on Jesus.
I definitely see your point, and no, I haven't. I don't get those feelings. I went to when I was in the service, I went to a lot of different places, and I went to Rome, which kind of cool, but people go to Rome and get in the presence of like St. Peter's Basilica, and they have religious experiences just being there. And I was like, wow, it's kind of neat, but still bricks and mortar. It's still just a building. Yeah. I'm not in anybody's. There was no great presence here.
Even during the Avengers.
Even during the Avengers.
Okay. Just making sure.
As much as I like the Avengers, I thought it was really cool.
Well, thinking about it,
theme park.
I think what you experienced at First Flight probably is really similar. I guess I kind of get the same feeling when, I think about the universe, or when I sit on the beach and just stare at the ocean. It's when you get that idea that everything outside of yourself is just so massive and just so awe-inspiring. When you go to a historic place and you see the things you can reflect on the collective history of that, and all the things that led to where you are now, and it just sort of like crashes over you. I guess that's kind of a similar feeling. So if you've ever felt something like that, then it's almost the same thing. I
don't know. Usually, what I feel are things that, like maybe a feeling of perspective. I know you read XKCD comics.
Yes, I do.
That guy has a great perspective. I love what he does. Sort of, things like he does these comics where like things are drawn to scale, or let's put things into perspective. Did you see the most recent one where it was just a one-panel comic and it had all 786 known planets drawn to scale?
Oh yeah.
And then like right in the middle there was like a little box around 9 of them, and he's like, "This is us."
Yeah, those are just the exoplanets, like.
Right. I mean, but that's not awe-inspiring, but I feel that lends perspective to my worldview about how the universe is really, really big.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get. I mean, I'm not a very emotional person to begin with, and I just don't see this purpose to assign a. I don't understand why we have this need to take these things and assign some kind of supernatural agency to them. And I know, like, we're probably going to talk about, like, a lot of people are doing work to figure out the biology behind it, and then maybe why it's adaptive. But
Matt in the chat room is saying that he's recommending a book. He says that it's explained in his book. he goes, I have feelings, and then he adds Jesus on top of that. It's like he says that his book kind of reflects what I was saying earlier about, we experience it, and then we add our own definition to the end of it. We add Jesus to it or whatever.
Well, couldn't you just arbitrarily assign anything to that feeling?
Say Cthulhu.
Have those feelings, right? Unicorns.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of our perceptions are colored by our cultural background. It's like they say, religion is a matter of cultural upbringing. It's complete chance. If you were born in Pakistan, you'd be a Muslim. If you were born in India, you'd be a Hindu. And your religious experiences would be colored by that.
I'm waiting for Jason to tell us about handling snakes in Texas.
I did have a religious experience.
Experiment.
It's
Have you experimented with religion?
Yeah, I did actually. But
know the warning signs.
I had to. You got to know the dangers to. Anyway, now. But I did have a religious experience in Texas, and I feel that people in Texas have more religious experiences than anybody of any other state that I know. I mean. But
that would be I don't know, that would be in line with Ken's point about it's going to be more dependent upon culture and your upbringing. I don't know. So a lot of the articles.
Just to clarify, when I say I had a religious experience, at the time I was very young. I believed in Christianity, and therefore my worldview injected Christianity or Jesus and God into it. So when I had this experience, of course, it was related to as a spiritual experience. I feel if I had the same experience now, I would not be so quick to inject the Christian worldview to it. And
but we have these religious experiences, and we attribute them to a divine entity where there's some supernatural agent involved.
The engineers.
The
engineers.
Yeah, the engineers. And but really, at the end of the day, it's biology, right? It's a biological response. And I think that a lot of work is being done to show that. There's guys that are working on inducing those experiences pharmacologically, and there's guys that are doing fMRIs while people are meditating or praying or engaged in these religious experiences, and so they're demonstrating which areas of the brain are working, and a lot of the research. I don't know if you've read all the articles or seen a lot in the news, but a lot of times in the news it'll get portrayed as looking for the God spot in the brain.
Yeah,
and that's sort of fallen out of that term has sort of fallen out of vogue a little bit because, again, like most things, when they start looking at it, it's not just one God spot in your brain. It's a lot of things going on at once. It's complicated.
Neurology is complicated. I refuse to accept that.
Yeah. Yeah. What? But they think it might have to do with your. They think it might have to do with some of the functioning in your parietal lobes, and they've looked at people who've had parietal lobe injuries or parietal lobe trauma, and some guys go either direction. Like some people who have injuries to the parietal lobe, and they have these profound experiences of oneness or a presence, or they have people who had previously had those experiences. Their parietal lobe is injured, never feel it again. They feel cut off from it. So the implication is that this is biology. So if you can do it pharmacologically, if you can identify the biology in there, doesn't that take away the supernatural agency?
Well, that's the thing. And I have a real life experience, as I've talked about on other shows. I've been in a coma. I was thrown from a car and was put in a coma. there was a moment before when I was in ICU when they first brought me into the hospital, where I remember nothing of the experience, but after I got out and me and my dad were talking about it, he said that, well, all my friends and everybody said that I was very violent and lashing out, just swinging and punching people,
Sure.
and they were trying to hold me down. And the entire time I kept yelling, "They're coming after me! Get them the fuck away from me! They're coming after me!"
It's the Men in Black.
And it was kind of projected into my thought because since I don't remember any of this experience, it was kind of implied that I was referring to demons. And I had to do, it took me years. I had to do a lot of soul searching of like my beliefs and did I really see that, instead of the light at the end of the tunnel, did I see demons? Was I in hell? What was the Christian teachings true? Because I had this and I fought with this internally because it's kind of weird. Why was I doing that? And the conclusion that I came out with was that I had since I had such a huge head injury, my brain was swelling. They were going to crack my skull. They were going to do all the things they needed to bring the swelling down. And my logical thing that I've come to realize that I had a lot of lag time between my thought and the actions in the real world. I probably was knowing that I was going to get in trouble because I was camping out for tickets and I was doing things. I was 16, and the ambulance was coming after me. The paramedics were coming after me. I knew subconsciously that my body was in danger, and I only can say that they're coming after me, thinking that the paramedics, help was coming after me. Not that I was dying, that there was demons or that there were, the afterlife or whatever, And some people would say that's a religious experience. I never thought that. But because of the Christian upbringing and the people around me, it dominated my thought process. Maybe that was, that moment. But now I don't believe it was. I think it was just my perception of the world was really fucked up at the time because my brain was swelling and it was just a delayed reaction to an extreme reaction to what was going on.
Well, I would think that even afterwards, if you had a vivid recollection of demons, that doesn't mean there really are demons. You had a severe head trauma.
Yeah.
So I get that these things happen, but when we can explain them with biology, when we can apply that materialistic worldview to it and show that this is just biology, where is there room for the supernatural agency? Where's the room for God in there? When I can show that, well, really, it's not that feeling that you had with God. It turns out it's just increased activity in your left parietal lobe. Yeah. And, and it's increase of blood flow to the surface of your skin. Add to that the dilation of your pupil. And you just, you could explain it all with biology. And does that, I don't think it leaves room for God. And neither is it evidence for God. Certainly not.
Well, yeah, that's the the God of the gaps, where God is a shrinking area of scientific ignorance, and in this case, it's biological ignorance. We don't understand everything in the brain, and we don't even understand consciousness yet, what that is, let alone religious experience and how it's perceived.
Yeah,
but then again, it's just a matter of time. The operative word is yet.
Right. Well, like consciousness, there's a lot of talk about consciousness, a lot of research is done on consciousness. And the best way I've ever heard consciousness summed up is that consciousness is what the brain does. No brain, no consciousness.
Yeah. And it's certainly biochemical. It has to do with the brain and perception. Yeah,
but a lot of Christians and believers in general want to see our consciousness persist outside of our bodies, i.e. a soul, but no brain, no consciousness.
Yeah.
And again, that removes the supernatural agency. I don't know. and a lot of people are thinking like how this might have been adaptive and all, but I don't like. And it's hard for me to wrap my head around it because I've never really had that experience. I've never had a religious experience. There hasn't been this time where, I'm overwhelmed with the Spirit of God and I'm like, wow, it must be true. No, I don't know. Although I could see how people would take it as such. And I'm curious. Do you know how how does Scripture deal with religious experience? Do they talk about it much in the Bible?
Religious experience?
Yeah, the apostles. I don't know, filled with the presence of God or something.
Well, I mean, in the Scripture, it's usually more of a literal thing. It depends on where you're talking about. I mean, if you go back to the first couple books of the Bible, it's sort of a mixed bag. You have raw mythology where it's not an experience. They're not experiencing God. Like God is literally there. Like when God comes after and like attacks Moses, essentially. He's physically there. Or when he's walking around the Garden of Eden, he's physically there. That you begin to get into more complicated and what's the word? Like metaphorical theology, where God's presence is felt, but it's still more of a literal experience where God is there rather than what you see in churches today, where it's sort of like a perception. So I mean, like in the book of Acts, there's the Pentecost, where literally fire from heaven rains down on the apostles, and then they have the ability to speak in tongues. You go into a Pentecostal church today where they're trying to do the same thing, and it's not the same.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. So they all have the effects. Everybody's speaking in tongues, but where's the fire from heaven?
Yeah.
I just think of any. I bet you could think of some kind of historical incident or even something that's buried in Scripture about this person is filled with the presence of God so much that that they go into fits and they're in convulsions. Well, no, they're not really filled with the presence of God. It's epilepsy. They're having a seizure. And if you knew then what you knew now, we would be able to say that person is not having a religious experience. They're having a seizure.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because the Greek roots for epilepsy literally means to be seized upon, and they used because they thought that you were being seized upon by demons when you were having an epileptic fit. That's actually why it's called epilepsy.
Or maybe just a seizure. You've been seized.
Yeah. I mean, it's
So
seized upon.
How does demon possession fall into religious experience? I mean, on the flip side of it, like Bob Larson, makes a living off of it.
I guess it would be. I guess it would be in the hands of the accuser. Like, if this person that's having a seizure is somebody I want to get rid of, look at that, they're possessed by demons.
Mm-hmm.
But then, but then if it suit my aims to say like, no, I've filled them with the Spirit of the Lord. Pick one. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's still a person in a seizure and not evidence of a divine agency. And I don't know. I mean, it's just I just wonder why we have that that propensity to even now assign some sort of deity to things that are maybe of good providence or maybe poor luck or just random chance.
Because if you don't, you'll burn in hell.
Yeah. Which I guess we're at the halfway point. Our book for this week you can get at www.audibletrial.com/TNRL is a most excellent book by Michael Shermer. It is called The Believing Brain, and he asks just these questions and explores some of the possibilities and makes speculations and reviews some of the research. Why we are wired to believe things the way we are. And I think that book in particular is available at the audibletrial.com. And this one is narrated by Shermer too.
Awesome.
He's an elegant speaker.
Matt in the chat room says he owns it.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Excellent. Has he read it?
He's still Christian, isn't he?
He actually had a suggestion for our book this week, but it's not on Audible, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, Matt, that's why we didn't pick your book. Sorry.
And because it sucked, but...
No, it was actually... it looked really interesting, but it's not on Audible.
And no, he hasn't read it yet, he says.
Well, yeah. So one of the articles I sent you, or a link that I sent you, was that really long article in Wired magazine.
Yeah,
about the
and I
God
actually
helmet.
managed to get through it.
That's pretty neat. Although, it's funny. The God helmet is some of the. It's really amazing and interesting work. Although it's probably the most easily dismissed.
Yeah, I was looking at the criticisms for it because a lot of the people who put on the God helmet are graduate students who already know what the researcher is looking for. So it's difficult. They're not double-blind studies, and that's the major problem with it. No one's really replicated it.
So if you don't know what the God helmet is, it's research that's done by the guy's name is Persinger. Is that how you say his name?
I believe so. Yeah.
And I forget which university he's from, but he's developed.
It's Laurentian in Sudbury, Ontario.
There you go.
There you go.
He took like a motorcycle helmet and wired it up such that it's almost transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's like some people who have a strict definition of that say that it's not, and he says, well, it kind of is. But anyway, the whole point is he's like beaming he's using this helmet, and he's like beaming these magnetic waves into your brain. And the whole idea is to stimulate those parts of the brain that he feels were engaged in religious experience. And according to his work, a lot of people who have put the helmet on, they turn it on, and it's not like an instantaneous thing. Apparently, it's got to warm up, or you got to leave it on for a while. There's different factors. But people put it on, and they claim to have those feelings of oneness, and they claim to feel this presence with them. And they have those religious experiences, those textbook, check them off on a list, things that we describe as religious experience.
Well, I think...
And it's artificially generated.
Well, that's what I think deep inside, because religion has been on the forefront of everyone's thoughts since day one of our birth, that unless you've grown up in, an atheist family or whatever, but majority of Americans, it's on. It doesn't matter if it's Christianity or whatever. It's on the forefront of everybody's. You go to church, you do whatever. There is a candid camera type show. One of those shows where they have the hidden camera and they go into real public and they kind of just make live jokes on innocent people. Well, there's one that was sent to me the other day. I forget what country it was made, but it was one of. There's a woman in a mall. And she set up a table that had a donation can on it, and it says like "Feed the children" or "Save the children" or whatever. And she talks to people and get them to put money in the donation jar. But as she's telling her story, telling people about. Well, actually, I gotta take that back. She grabs somebody and says, "Can you watch this real quick? I go to the restroom or whatever." And so she leaves, and it leaves these innocent people behind this donation jar, and this guy dresses up as Jesus with a crown of thorn, fake beard and everything, comes up and does a magical hand wave over the money jar and says, does the the prayer hands together and walks off. And the whole time he's doing this, the people are sitting there going, this dude's crazy. You can totally see it on their face. It's like, what does this guy think he's going to do? And as he walks off, there's a guy underneath a table that has a tube full of quarters, and he pushes it up, and it bursts out of the top of the donation jar. And you can see their facial expressions instantly change and look at Jesus as is that really Jesus? How did he do this? It went straight from disbelief, this guy's crazy, to, oh my God, he just performed a miracle. I think because of the conditioning and the teachings of all of our life, we have deep inside of us this desire to want it to be true, and so we look for it in everything. And maybe that's why.
Well, yeah, I want it to be true too, but I don't feel that it is.
Yeah, but I think that desire of wanting it to be true, there's a line that you have that other people don't, that they step across and say, well, this has got to be Jesus, or this has got to be whatever deity that you attach to it.
I think that part right there, this is whatever deity you attach to it is it's one of the biggest problems when you come down to trying to authenticate religion, is that, once again, your religious experience is colored by your cultural upbringing. I've yet to hear of a case where a Hindu had a near-death experience and saw Jesus, or a Muslim had a near-death experience and saw Thor. It doesn't happen, and the same thing. Sometimes you can have one person who's one religion go and have a religious experience, and it alters their religion, but it's usually because they went somewhere that's, got the cultural undertones of the religion they're switching to. You say you have a Muslim who goes to, Bethlehem, and they see, all the crap that's at Bethlehem, and they end up switching and becoming Christian, or, one way or the other. It's always because there's a cultural attachment.
So Matt in the chat room says that's why the experience can't by itself form your I can't talk, I'm about to cough, but he says that it can't form your belief.
But a lot of people use it as the basis for their belief. It's the foundation of their belief, because they see it, they perceive it as evidence.
Yeah, it's the authentication of the belief is what it is. Without the experience, you essentially have nothing. The Bible is just a book until you have that religious experience. But that religious experience, like I said, is a product of cultural upbringing.
Yeah, which is funny too, because one of the with regards to the God helmet, there was a Swiss group that tried to duplicate the research, and the original guy, he still says they did it wrong, or they're still batting this around, but they found that that it was a person's cultural biases determined the results of the God helmet more than anything else.
Absolutely.
So like I said, it really interesting research, but probably the most easily dismissed. Although I wanted to go further. I want them to do more with it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting.
And you know what? I found you can buy one too.
Really?
Yep, $670 online.
Huh.
You can. It's real small. It fits over your head. Somebody's selling it. I don't know how.
Just makes me think of Ghostbusters. Remember when he has the thing over his head?
Yeah.
But I don't think you're going to see the gargoyle demon. What was it called?
Gozer.
Gozer.
Yeah.
Gozer the Gozerian.
I watched that movie recently. It was great.
Or he was Vance
Still
Tortho,
amazing.
the Keymaster.
Yeah.
The Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. And when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
You say yes.
Not to get completely off topic, but no, I think I think the God helmet's really interesting because it represents. I mean, if someone can replicate it, it shows that religious experience is biochemical. It's something going on in the brain, not something outside of it.
Well,
or are the devils letting it happen to test your faith?
Yeah, that could be it. So all right, if you allow that religious experience should not form the basis of your faith, and I can demonstrate with reproducible results either pharmacologically or however it is that we can do it with transcranial stimulation or take these drugs. That this religious experience is 100% biology, then not only should the religious experience not form the basis of your faith, the religious experience shouldn't even be considered in your faith. Like why would you even consider it when I can share look, it's just a feeling. It's the same thing as how you have REM sleep or snore or sneeze or yawn. It's a biological effect.
Yeah. What I'm interested in, and it was kind of hit on in the stuff that you said, but not really, is why. Why is this a trait that's selected for, in the human brain?
Well, I didn't send those to you on purpose, but they're out there. There's a lot of guys that are doing work on it, and I don't know, maybe we could save it for another day, but the thinking is that that religious experience, it, like we said, it validates those beliefs, and it furthers the social cohesion and breeds cooperation among groups. That's sort of the prevailing idea in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. Is that we're evolutionarily selected to have these religious feelings, these religious experiences, and then when you have them, when a whole bunch of people have them, they're like, oh my God, I had the same feeling too. Look, we're the same. And so now it breeds cooperation and breeds, I'll just give you the food or the money when really I had no reason to do so before. And I was thinking too, that if that's true, then that would sort of be a feather in the hat of the people who are making the argument that religion is good for the world. But I disagree with that because I would say that religion was good for the world then, not now. We've moved beyond that, and I think Hitchens says that religion was our first stab at philosophy, and now we can do better.
Yeah, I agree. I would qualify it as a religious experience was good. Religion has tended to be, I mean, depending on how you define things, I would say organized religion is more of a problem than it is a solution. But yeah, the religious experience, sure. If it's an outcropping of sort of identifying self and other, but works as a cohesive attribute to keep societies together, then yeah, I mean, it certainly was. But then again, we don't necessarily need that today. Yeah,
well, and much like Dawkins would say that if the religious experience is an evolved biological trait, culture proceeds at a much faster pace than biology, and so we find ourselves in this situation where we have this evolved biological trait that's no longer culturally necessary. Yeah,
it's vestigial.
Yeah,
it's just like our tailbones and our appendix.
Yeah, and like anything else, you always said that these things are or like Dan Barker illustrates that religious experience, just like anything else. It's not like you have it and you have it and you have it and everybody's the same. It's it's a broad spectrum across a large population, and we'll find variance among them. And in fact, that even lends that falls more in line with the point that it is a biological trait, and that biology wants a diversity of reactions. You don't want the trait to be the same for everybody. You want it to be diverse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Ken's like,
That's,
"Oh,
that's a lot to think about.
all right."
All right.
But, all right, so here I have a hockey story too, and I wanted to. I hope maybe none of my teammates are listening to this. So we're playing a playoff game, and this is, you'll see why this is relevant. But we're playing this playoff game, and it's against a rival team who I can't stand them. They suck. But before the game, we're in the locker room getting dressed, lacing up my skates, and we're talking about, like, who's going to make it. We're trying to figure out who we have for that night. And there's one of my teammates who the last couple games has been awful, has been just awful. Like, when he's out there, it's not like he's just not doing it right. It's like he's playing for the other team awful. And I was like, man, this cat, he needs to get his act together, because this is a hard game tonight. That dude needs to step up. He needs to get his shit together. And now, there are some guys out there, and I'm not one of them, but there are some guys who would get frustrated with a weaker player, and they will not make the pass to them, and they will sort of ignore them in the play. But I am not that way at all. I stand by the fact that the right play is the right play. It doesn't matter if you think the guy is a better player or not, or if you think he's a weaker player or not. You play the game the right way. So anyway, we played 3 periods of hockey, and this guy that I was talking about in the beginning was awful for 3 periods. He was just awful. And then, but we tied it up, so we go to overtime. And so we're out there skating, and I chase the puck into the corner, and I look up, and here's that guy, and he's streaking right in the middle, and he's doing everything right. He's got his head down, or he's got his stick down, both hands on it, looking at me, presenting a target, doing everything right. It's like hockey 101. And so I pass the puck to him. He receives the pass great, makes the shot, score, we win. Game over. It was a sudden death goal. And everybody's like, yeah, man, good job. And rightly so, right? He did everything right. His hard work put him in the position to score, and he did. And I remember we get back to the locker room, and one of my teammates was like, wow, it's really great that guy scored the winning goal tonight. And I said, yeah, I know. It's really fabulous that he did. I mean, he worked really hard. He finally got his head out of his ass. And so then my other teammate who was commenting on this, he was like, yeah, you were talking about it in the locker room before the game. It's like somebody upstairs heard you. And I was like, I didn't say anything at the time, but it's been bothering me for days, because there was no divine providence there. And this guy is not a super religious guy. He's only like nominally religious, but it just sort of illustrates like how easily people tend to assign some kind of, God agency to just good fortune or someone else's hard work. Or what about me? I made the pass to the guy. If I'd have taken his performance in the 3 games as evidence of what he was going to do with this, I wouldn't have passed it to him. But it was the right play. He was in the right spot. He was working hard. It was the right thing to do. I believed he could do it. I had confidence that he would perform.
So are you God?
Huh?
Are you God?
No. But, I believed in my teammate, and it paid off. Not God.
Well, yeah, you know what? It's like, you see like a Super Bowl, winning touchdown, and the quarterback's like, oh, God really helped me there. It's like you're downplaying your skill. Like God didn't help you. The fact that you're a professional athlete did. The hours and hours of training that you put into before playing this game. That's what helped you. The years of playing, non-professional football helped you. God wasn't there. Like you act like God picked you up in his hand and carried you over and dropped you in the end zone.
Chat room's totally disagreeing with all this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't have my chat room open.
Chat room is saying little straw man, little red herring. I'm not sure which is the one. He goes,
No, not a straw man or a red
it
herring
said
at all.
the religious experience. I don't know why I keep saying experiment. Which can be overwhelming. Versus he scored a goal. Just because some of the people assign agency at the wrong time doesn't eliminate the idea of the divine agency. And that's when he says straw man or red herring. I'm not sure which one.
Well, I disagree with that in that I'm not presenting this anecdote as proof of anything. I've been thinking about it and putting it out there as an example of how easily people who are nominally religious, not very religious at all, automatically fall into this mode where they assign agency to it. How easily we do that.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. Like I said, I mean, even just some of the smallest things. You know, just everyday normal things that are, you know, at best, chance.
And I think when, you know, especially in the case, my anecdote, when you assign agency, it belittles the work of the people involved.
Yeah. Hey, you've seen that meme where, you know, there's always there's a doctor performing surgery or like a runner or whatever it is. There's a biker. There's Jesus behind him saying something that kind of makes him like an asshole. And like there's one where there's a doctor and he's performing surgery and Jesus is behind him. He's got his hand on his shoulder. And then the text says, it's Jesus saying, if he survives, it's me. If he dies, it's your fault. You know, and the surgeon's like, you're such an asshole, Jesus. But I think it is that way. You know, when something bad happens, we tend to ascribe it to human beings, or at least nowadays we do.
I know there's
but when something good happens, it's a supernatural
happen.
Agency.
Devils.
Yeah. Well, that's why
puck.
I qualified as saying nowadays.
Yeah.
It's humans. Years ago,
Or in Texas, present
almost
day.
anything bad would be the devil.
You know, I
Even in the 80s, it was the devil.
I think that assigning any agency at all to a sporting event is silly to begin with, and I know Matt would agree with me on that because right. So here's the other side of the coin is their goalie failed to make the save, and he might be a more religious person. Now he has to go home to his teammates and be like, "Guys, I blew it," and and he's going to have to deal with it, and it's not going to be anything life shattering, but I'm sure that's not how he wanted to spend his night. You know, that's the beauty, I guess, of sport is there's victory and there's defeat. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose.
And from a Christian point of view, in the chat room says that some people blame God for the bad and take credit for the good.
Well, I mean, I guess they could do that. My argument is that there is no divine agency, and that let's talk about, you know, someone else's hard work that got them there, or I don't know. In the I'm trying to think of another example, because I don't think it's a red herring or a straw man.
But do you know what it means for the goalie who missed that shot?
He blew it.
It means his religion is wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, I was thinking of yeah, right. His faith is all wrong. He needs to get.
We need to find out what religion he is, because his religion is now wrong.
Did you ever hear that? There was an interview with the people who do Snopes, and they were talking about this story about a woman. It's like some apocryphal story. It didn't really happen. It's just sort of like presented as I don't know, maybe a parable or something, where the woman was walking through an alley and she was very afraid, and and there were like suspicious characters about, and then, but she gets home safely. But then she winds up, the police come to her door because they want her to testify in court about the people she saw in this alley, because apparently they had raped some young woman who followed her in sometime afterwards. And when she confronted the men that did this, she's like, I went through the alley before, and why didn't you attack me? And they said, oh, they're those big guys that were with you, and the meaning like the angels were walking with her. And and it's this parable that's supposed to sort of illustrate that I know it's not true, but it's the story that's told. And it's supposed to illustrate how like she was walking with God, and she was under God's protection, and these angels were walking with her, protecting her from harm. But the darker side of that story is, what happened to the woman who did get raped? Was she not deserving of protection as well in this story? It's a horrible story.
Her religion's wrong too.
Like she's just as deserving of protection, or of not having these horrible things happen to her. But it's all sort of told in this way to illustrate, like, I don't know, get right with God, and He'll watch over you. And if bad things happen to you, it's because you're not right with God.
It's using the fear factor. It's using, if the only bad things are going to happen unless you side with our way of thought. I mean, it's a mafia mentality almost.
I guess, but isn't that sort of in line with those views of the prosperity ministries, where anything good that happens, that's because your God's on your side, so you need to get on His side, and more good stuff will happen.
Kind of, yeah. Prosperity gospel usually has more to do with.
Uh-oh, we lost sound.
I lost internet.
Uh-oh.
Well, we're at the end of it anyway, so.
Disconnected there for a second.
Welcome back.
I know.
Hey, I don't know what happened.
You unplugged something.
I didn't touch anything.
No, it was Jason did.
Oh, Jason unplugged something.
I would
Bastard.
not do such things.
Maybe it's God. He didn't want me to say what I was about to say.
Give me
You
your
were
video.
saying prosperity ministry.
Give me your video.
Oh, yeah. I hate that it doesn't just pop up. Is that? Come on,
Yeah,
go.
look at that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What do you guys see? Because I don't see anything.
It's all right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt even
No,
liked that.
prosperity gospel usually has more to do with, tithing and give us your money and whatnot. Whereas, this is more of a writing off of theodicy, as, if something bad happens to you, it's because you deserved it, because you've done something that God didn't like, which is, I was actually thinking about the other day, it's kind of a dangerous path to go down, because when you try to define theodicy, which is the root of evil, why bad things happen, to simple, immorality, what happens when something actually is moral, and bad things still happen to them. What does that mean for the super devout? What does that mean for a congregation when they're, if their preacher gets cancer?
Just
when you're
God's
looking
plan,
at ministers, they're supposed to be the, essentially like theological superheroes. Like, they are supposed to be, if anyone's right with God, it's supposed to be them.
But even on moments like that, say if the leader of your church gets cancer or whatever, it's still not looked down upon in terms of it makes your faith weaker, because the followers just say, well, this happened so we can strengthen our faith, to come together more.
Well, that's special pleading.
Well,
God works in mysterious ways. Yeah, it's like that flow chart with prayer. It's like, pray. Did it work? Yes. Miracle. No. God works in mysterious ways.
That's funny. Yes, miracle.
Yeah, it is special pleading.
Yeah.
But to stay in a logical path, it is like it's dangerous, theologically speaking, to start trying to give concrete, simple explanations for theodicy.
Yep.
Are we about that time?
We should wrap it up.
Yeah, you got it. I got nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I never remember the phone number. So I always have to bring up the docs.
Anyway,
Say
all right,
something.
so we'll wrap it up. Ken will give you all the info. But download Michael Shermer's book. Why people believe. The Believing Brain is the one we suggested. Michael Shermer, The Believing Brain, available at www.audibletrial.com/TNRL. Get it. You can get it for free. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something profound to end on, but I really got nothing.
Maybe it's profound that both of us were thinking about the same book
Yeah.
when we decided
I think it's
Divine
profound.
providence.
I think it's profound that the new position, the new room that Ken is sitting in now, the fan, when he leans back, creates a halo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's end with that. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to call us out for being idiots, you want to say that we're simple-minded fools, which was a comment left recently.
Weak-minded fools.
Weak-minded fools. 757-337-2195. Leave a voicemail. Jason might even answer.
Hello.
No. Email us nonreligious@zombie-pop.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/thisnonreligiouslife. Put us in your circles on Google+.
Circle jerk.
What?
Keep going.
Oh, God. iTunes, you can rate us, leave feedback there, download all the episodes, previous episodes. This is like episode 57, I think. So we have plenty. Keep you occupied for a while. Stitcher Radio, you can... Downloading's not your thing. You should get the app. You can just listen to any of the episodes on the fly. Basically, just go to the website, zombiepopcorn.com, get the newsletter, sign up for giveaways, all that stuff. And that's it, you know?
Before we cut out, I wanted to say a quick thank you to Gary, who wrote a nice email to us about the show.
Oh yeah.
He had a lot of really nice things to say, so I appreciate it, Gary. It was I'm glad you like it, and thanks for the email. That was really sweet. Which was much better than calling us weak-minded fools.
Yes.
I don't know.
I feel like we get more positive feedback than we do negative feedback.
It's
which
really
makes me feel good.
lengthy. And so I'm glad we could help. Awesome.
All right.
Bye.
So we'll
Thanks,
see
Gary.
you next week.
Yep, next time.
This got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. This got out here. Then I read that Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote